Married at last, Charles and Camilla tie the knot after more than 30 years. Tonight, the royal couple are honeymooning in Scotland after a wedding day that went without a hitch. Congratulations. Have the Prince and Duchess now won over the public?
I think they'll be very happy between them.
They seem to have waited a long time for this, so we're really pleased for them.
Also, Rover inquiry. Probe signalled into how bosses at the ailing firm got rich. And Hunter's Gold, favourite hedge hunter, wins the Grand National. Good evening. After a 30-year love affair, the Prince of Wales and Camilla Parker Bowles have finally become husband and wife. In the historic surroundings of St George's Chapel, Windsor, along with 700 friends, the newlyweds received a religious blessing. Earlier, thousands of well-wishers cheered the couple as they entered Windsor's Guildhall to register their marriage. Well, tonight, the Prince and Duchess are in Scotland, beginning their long-awaited honeymoon. Our UK editor, Tom Bradby, has the story of a remarkable day.
They have waited long enough, but this afternoon they faced the world as man and wife. After so much aggression and humiliation and derision, after so many mess-ups and so much criticism, many people who watched today may have been surprised at their own response. It was an extraordinary moment, emotional and cathartic. Two people who've incurred the wrath of millions may have begun to turn it around with this bold public statement of their commitment. Camilla looked terrified all day. She hates the public stage, and it's a safe bet that if she wasn't physically sick with nerves, she certainly will have felt like being. A short time later, they emerged, married at last. William and Camilla's son Tom came half a pace behind them with their siblings and other members of the family. There were cheers and then boos of disappointment as they got into the car to drive back to the castle. By now, guests were beginning to arrive for the blessing. Charles and Camilla do have an extraordinarily wide group of friends. They invited Richard E. Grant and Joanna Lumley, Jilly Cooper and Melvin Bragg. Stephen Fry and Rowan Atkinson greeted each other like the old friends they are from Blackadder days. Camilla's former husband was there. He'd phoned her beforehand to wish her well. Tara Palmer-Tompkinson arrived with her family just before Mark Dyer, who's been a steadfast friend and close advisor to William and Harry. Next came Camilla's son and his glamorous sister, before the younger members of the royal family walked down from the main section of the castle. William and Harry seemed determined to make it clear they were going to enjoy the day. If they had any private moments of introspection or reflection, like their grandparents, they kept them to themselves today. The Shan family too, of course, came to offer their support. Camilla's father on the end here is a distinguished war hero and remains very close to his daughter. The service itself was extraordinary. After all that we know of their past, how hard must it have been to pledge their fidelity before an audience of hundreds of millions around the world?
Charles, have you resolved to be faithful to your wife, forsaking all others so long as you both shall live?
That is my resolve with the help of God.
Camilla, have you resolved to be faithful to your husband, forsaking all others so long as you both shall live?
That is my resolve with the help of God.
Heavenly Father,
that tiny reassurance, the stroke of his hand, told us all we needed to know about a relationship forged in adversity. Then there was the prayer of penitence.
We acknowledge and bewail our manifold sins and wickedness, which we from time to time most grievously have committed. by thought, word, and deed, against thy divine majesty, provoking most justly thy wrath and indignation against us.
It is a safe bet that for both Charles and Camilla, the public aspects of today were ones to be endured rather than enjoyed. She stood with a frozen smile as she clutched her headpiece before being clasped in an embrace by one of the crowd. Tonight they left to spend their honeymoon in the deep and, to both of them, blessed peace of Birk Hall in Scotland. I'm told that in his speech in there tonight, the Prince toasted his parents, his father-in-law, his sons, and as he put it, my darling Camilla. At that point, apparently, the Duke of Edinburgh came over and started pumping his hand in congratulations. William and Harry decorated the car with Prince for Duchess and threw confetti as they left. The atmosphere, I'm told, was extraordinary. The general sentiment, thank God this has happened. They must hope that the country feels the same. Tom Bradby, ITV News, in Windsor.
Well, royal wedding fever did grip Windsor today as 20,000 people lined the streets to catch a glimpse of the happy couple. Union Jacks fluttered and cheers erupted as the Prince and his new wife held their first public walkabout. Chris Joyce spent the day with some of the well-wishers.
As Windsor woke this wedding day, some had already been here hours.
I've been here since just after 9 o'clock last night, about 13-14 hours before the wedding starts.
But to get the really good positions, you needed to arrive even earlier with a tent and thermal underwear.
So you've needed a tent, hot water bottles and body heat. The temperatures have been so low. What makes you so determined to see this wedding? It's supposed to be a low-key affair, it's not a state occasion.
It's another royal wedding, it's an occasion.
With some Windsor hotels charging thousands last night, these seasoned royalists came with a caravan from Warrington.
Future King of England, doesn't it?
Yeah, as well,
So
you know.
to us, it's the most important one, really.
But,
whatever has gone before it.
Mid-morning and big surprise, sunshine as people gathered from across the world.
From Australia, America, Tasmania, Canada,
Coventry! That seems a bit of an anticlimax.
Then we spotted Camilla getting ready. No, not that one. This is Camilla Bell and her flatmate, Charles, from Exeter. They waited for just one moment.
big hat, lots of feathers, cream, and oh, I like it.
But not everyone was so happy.
It was very, very sad that they didn't come to the front of these railings and acknowledge the crowd a little bit more, I believe.
Today, 3 non-royal weddings took place in the same civic building, and the other couples certainly spent more time with the crowd.
Really, really happy.
Wonderful. Well, there wasn't much of a walkabout, not a lot of royal waving, but the crowd do seem happy enough nevertheless. But how much do they actually know about this new member of the royal family? What do you reckon Camilla's title will be?
Princess of Wales.
Princess of Wales, what do you think?
Queen.
Okay, what about you? What do you reckon?
Duchess of Cornwall.
Correct.
The crowd warmed to a royal couple who've had problems connecting, but everyone relates to a love story, certainly our caravanners from Warrington.
I think they'll be very happy between them.
They seem to have waited a long time for this, so we're really pleased for them. I think it's really been worth it. I wouldn't have missed it for anything.
Police say 20,000 attended, about the same were at Edward and Sophie's wedding. Today was a milestone for the royal newlyweds and was perhaps a new start in their crucial relationship with the British public. Chris Choi, ITV News, Windsor.
Well, in other news, the Chancellor Gordon Brown has hinted that the directors of MG Rover will face an investigation into their lucrative pay deals. 4 bosses made millions of pounds from the company despite it running out of cash. The opposition claims ministers should have been aware of the problem. Here's our political correspondent, Simon Harris.
The workforce faces an uncertain future. Production has been suspended, and now the finger of blame is being pointed. John Towers, the chairman of MG Rover's parent company Phoenix Venture Holdings, flew back from China amid accusations that he and his fellow directors profited to the tune of millions.
All you have to do is to actually go around Longbridge and talk to our employees and see their views about how they think we behave and how we pursue the interests of the business.
The Chancellor hinted at an inquiry but said saving jobs was the priority.
It's exactly because of what has happened at Rover that people need a government that is on their side, and they need a government with a new deal, with a small business service, with help for new industries, that is prepared to act when there are problems.
When John Towers and his 3 colleagues at Phoenix took over the company, they put up a bond of £240,000, £60,000 each. But they only paid BMW £10 to buy Rover. In the last 4 years, they're estimated to have paid themselves a total of £40 million. The Chinese were not impressed when they looked at the books, in particular the troubled pension fund. Rover has acknowledged a £67 million shortfall.
It was Tony Blair who phoned BMW to convince them that Phoenix should be the preferred partner. Stephen Byers told the House of Commons they had a viable business plan. Now we want to know what happened to all of those things.
I think it's less important to find out who's to blame than to look forward to practical measures of helping the workers. 20,000 people are going to lose their jobs. They desperately need help with retraining and adjustment.
Much of the traditional automotive industry in the West Midlands no longer relies solely on Rover, but some casualties are inevitable. The Department of Trade has already announced a £40 million aid package to help MG Rover's suppliers, and the Chancellor says the government is prepared to spend more. But while components companies may be cushioned, few industry observers think the car firm itself will survive intact. Simon Harris, ITV News, the Department of Trade.
Well, there's better news for the government tonight, with a poll suggesting that Gordon Brown's prominent role in the election campaign is paying dividends. After a week in which Mr Brown has been constantly at the Prime Minister's side, Labour have topped 40% in the latest Mori survey. That's a massive 7 points ahead of the Conservatives, though other polls have shown a closer margin. Hundreds of soldiers have marched through London in protest at the government's proposed merger of Scottish regiments. The Black Watch is among several, which could be folded into a new Royal Regiment of Scotland. And police have launched an investigation after a woman was found dead at Britain's biggest army base. Forensic officers are searching Catterick Garrison in North Yorkshire, where her body was found. Well, sport now, and Hedgehunter won this year's Grand National in convincing style. Jockey Ruby Walsh romped to a 14-length victory, his second triumph in the race. Carrie Ford's dreams of becoming the first female winner were dashed, but her 5th place on Forest Gunner was a notable achievement. Helen Callahan reports from Aintree.
Rain at the richest race in the UK, but it didn't stop some 70,000 punters parting with more than £200 million in cash. From the off, the weight of expectation was on Carrie Ford, the only female jockey in the field. But by the second time around the course, it was Tony McCoy on Clan Royal who was setting the pace. Until, that is, a classic bit of Grand National bad luck.
Clan Royal is out of the race. They've stopped him.
It was Hedgehunter who seized the opportunity. He fell at the final fence last year, but this time around there were no mistakes. Hedgehunter's jockey Ruby Walsh said he didn't dare look behind him until he'd crossed the line.
Jumped like a stag, travelled really well, never got going too keen with me, and it was just unbelievable really.
Only last week Hedgehunter wasn't well, and trainer Willie Mullins thought he might struggle again over the final fences.
Just holding my breath, and when he got over the last, just hoping that something wouldn't arrive from the clouds to beat us, but the horse he loves the track, he just jumps so well.
So the day belongs to Hedgehunter. He showed just why he was the favourite, and although it's been disappointing for Carrie Ford and Forest Gunner, the bookies are smiling. Helen Callahan, ITV News, Aintree.
Well, football now, and Manchester United's title hopes are surely over after an embarrassing defeat against lowly Norwich United. They were outplayed by the Premiership's bottom club, losing 2-0. Well, Chelsea also slipped up, the leaders managing only a 1-1 draw at home to Birmingham. But Arsenal did narrow the gap, if only to 11 points. Neil Roberts reports.
With Norwich 6 points adrift at the bottom, this was a must-win game for Manchester United. Sir Alex Ferguson came to Carrow Road prepared, with Rooney and Van Nistelrooy on the bench. But it was Norwich who sprang the surprises. Dean Ashton headed them into the lead. Then they confirmed a shock victory. Leon Mackenzie with a simple chance after United's defence was torn apart. The result may not save Norwich, but it must end United's Premiership hopes. Norwich 2, Manchester United 0. Jose Mourinho was back in the dugout for Chelsea after his midweek UEFA ban. But even he couldn't inspire the champions-elect at home against Birmingham. Chelsea laboured through the first half and went a goal down when Walter Pandiani took advantage of a rare error by Peter Cech. But Chelsea responded and preserved their unbeaten home league record. Didier Drogba was their rescuer in the 82nd minute. Chelsea won, Birmingham City won. Chelsea's nearest challengers are now Arsenal. They're 11 points behind after a goal by Robert Pires gave them all 3 points at Middlesbrough. It finished Middlesbrough 0, Arsenal 1. Neil Roberts, ITV News.
Well, we end the programme tonight with the historic marriage of Prince Charles and Camilla Parker Bowles. They finally tied the knot at Windsor this afternoon. Tonight, the royal couple are enjoying their honeymoon, more than 30 years after their controversial romance first began. Well, there's more on the ITV News channel tomorrow. But for the moment, we will leave you with these images from a remarkable day. Good night.